So hi everyone, welcome to this event today, which is our Intro to Blockchain event. I'm going to spotlight myself. I'm going to ask you if you do want to ask questions, please do so in chat. We will do this by way of a whiteboard, a mirror board, and talk through the steps. I'm going to take you from first principles of blockchain, what a blockchain is, and then to all the nitty-gritty detail as well. So I'm Anthony, I'm the CEO of Encode and one of the co-founders. Encode, for those of you who don't know, is a Web3 educational community. We help you fulfill your potential to do great things in blockchain, with the long-term aim of you getting jobs and starting companies. We've done this for many years now, and we hope you follow the footsteps of many others and go and do great things in the blockchain space that starts off now with just learning about it for the first time or refreshing yourself as the case may be. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, cool. So this is our Intro to Blockchain, guys. If you have any questions along the way, please do not hesitate to ask. Cool. So we're going to start off theoretically to begin with. Then we're going to look at the kind of features of a blockchain. Then we're going to look at sort of different approaches. And then we're going to finally touch on use cases at the end. This mirror board will be made available to you after this session for your enjoyment. I'll probably add some color to it as well. So first, theoretically, a blockchain exists effectively as a kind of a version of money. So if we look at how money kind of developed, first money, we kind of first kind of came across money. Money was used, wasn't used at all. We used a barter. I have a cow and I want a sheep. I swap the cow for 2 sheep. I have some fruit. You have some bread. I swap the fruit for some bread. That's fairly efficient, though. If you want to do things that to trade things that don't directly equal each other. So 1 cow might not equal like 3 sheep, it might equal 3.2 sheep. So money emerges as a denomination, as a medium of exchange. We usually have this in the form of some form of physical item, a gold coin, a rock you could point to. And this is all well and good, but unfortunately, when you get to large amounts of money, I then have to carry this around with me. And this is not a good thing. I don't want to. So we get the concept, if we start drawing this out, we start off with barter, we move in to medium of exchange, let's say a coin, to needing some sort of trust / bank. And banks emerge effectively as mediums to allow us to spend money we cannot physically hold and needs to be stored somewhere. And this emerges for much of the kind of 19th century until we get into the sort of 20th century. And eventually we kind of come to the conclusion that you can have money that exists without physical backing. Please, Danny, could you mute that chat? And this is digital money. And digital money, we now know, it's credit cards, we send it over the internet. And it should be added that the amount of physical money in the world is tiny now compared to the amount of virtual money, digital money. So the issue is, though, when I'm actually exchanging kind of $5, let's say I'm sending Danny $5, what actually happens when we send digital money? Well, what happens is we have banks as the middleman. Effectively, when I send Danny $5, we have kind of a spreadsheet. And the spreadsheet says, okay, Anthony has $5. He sends it to Danny, so Anthony has $5 less, and Danny has $5 more. Nothing physically actually moved. If I'm in the same, if between banks, they might update their spreadsheets between each other. If I'm within the same bank, like, it really is just numbers changing on a page. It's an incredibly simple process. And effectively, all money is a spreadsheet of who has what. And with this concept in mind, we can start doing quite powerful things. So the challenge of blockchain is basically this. if money is effectively a database, does this database need to be operated by a central party? Now, the central party we have now are central banks. Central banks, the Bank of England, the Fed, etc. These look very ugly. They are effectively responsible for this spreadsheet and make sure, and you do get controversy where these spreadsheets are not kept up to date, and this could be extremely problematic. But the problem with these central banks is they are kind of points of failure. Are we sure we trust them completely? Are they capable of erring? We've all seen, of course, runs on banks, which are kind of where banks kind of over leverage themselves and over expose their positions. And so effectively, you have this thing called Bitcoin. And Bitcoin emerges as effectively a, can I build money without needing a central party, but instead have code run the spreadsheet? Very important. So can I build money without needing a central party and instead having code run the spreadsheet? And this is what we now know as a cryptocurrency. And now you might be thinking, okay, so what is the, I get the currency bit, it's used as quasi money. What does the crypto bit mean? So the crypto here effectively means we are using cryptographic proofs to prove that, to sign transactions as a form of a digital identity for ourselves. That's what it means. It's actually very simple. It's a very old technology. But you might think, so, but how does this work? So it works through blockchain, which is effectively just a database management tool. And it's a database management tool with one essential feature. The essential feature is it requires the majority to agree, which we call consensus, on a change to the state of affairs. And all changes must be broadcasted to everyone. And we have various complicating systems of doing this more efficiently and scalably and secure, but fundamentally it is this. Blockchain is a database management tool that helps us all come to consensus, so we don't have to rely on central banks or banks to do that consensus for us. Now, clearly we can do other things here. Now, it is not just the case that we have to move money, or rather we don't just have to move money. Rather, the whole point of blockchain and the use cases we'll later discuss is designing applications that themselves also don't rely on a central party and do have money built into their core design, either as a key medium, yeah, I'll just say as money built into their core design, either as key medium or as part of an incentive structure. Now, incentives we'll come on to are extremely important with blockchain. The way to make everyone agree to kind of want to engage, or engagement is itself facilitated by incentives, usually in the form of a token or cryptocurrency. So blockchains rely on incentives fundamentally, and the token itself becomes this incentive. So let's quickly recap what we've discussed. First, in terms when we think about blockchain, we need to first of all go back to money. What I should add here, this is a whistle-stop tour, but most of you know this, the founder of Bitcoin was Satoshi Nakamoto, and he's an anonymous character, and he wrote the Bitcoin white paper, and Bitcoin itself emerges from this white paper and early versions of it. But anyway, fundamentally, Bitcoin was a challenge on how do you make money without a central party. Money, as we know, has developed from being a form, or rather money emerged, and money as a medium of exchange emerged to be a better alternative to just bartering. But eventually, physical coins aren't a good way to progress. So we start to have banks that hold money on trust and in debit, and establish a system of debit and credit. This establishes the concept also of digital money, money that is not represented by any physical asset, or you can't, you can have it without needing the physical assets. And effectively, if you have digital money, the way you keep track of who has what, because you don't have literal physical things we can put in the spot that's assigned to a certain person, is we effectively keep a spreadsheet of who has what and what transactions have happened, and broadly central banks keep this spreadsheet. But if you establish that money is just kind of a spreadsheet, you can replace that central party with just code. And this is what Bitcoin was. And this is called a cryptocurrency. Crypto meaning the way we kind of sign transactions to identify ourselves digitally. And we use blockchain as the database management tool, particularly with a feature of consensus, which allows us to come to agreement together and tell everyone and shout about new changes. And we are incentivized to contribute to this system by usually a token, which is itself the cryptocurrency. Doesn't always have to be, but is usually. We don't just have to move money. The sole use case of crypto is not money for me, but is designing applications that themselves also don't rely on a central party, but do have natural incentives built into them. Cool. So that's the core features of crypto, or rather the theory of crypto. But I now want to talk about the features. So this system comes with things we think are very important. So first is decentralization. There is no central party, which leads to the next thing, which is this concept of sort of trustlessness. This doesn't mean you don't trust anything. It means you trust the code and no one particular party, which means you avoid points of failure. These are things we kind of care about with a crypto system. What else do we kind of care about? We care about openness. But effectively, because anyone can usually participate in a blockchain system, again, you don't have to set rules that way, but you can. It can be censorship resistant. It is also typically owned by its users. Because, and there's a very good reason for this, if it's not, you cannot have a democratic majority consensus. Specifically, you can then have a few parties who have control, but that's not a democracy anymore. And the democratic aspect, the open aspect, the fact that no one is pointing finger is extremely, extremely important to this thing we are trying to build if we're going to have trust in it. I would rather have trust in a central bank than a blockchain that is itself centralized, for instance. So very, very important. What else do we kind of care about? It's immutable. It is actually, this is not true. You could change it, but you would need to control the network, at which point no one's using it anymore. So the key kind of point here is you cannot change it. So history is fixed. Again, very important. If you're going to have the spreadsheet as a universal source of truth, you not go back and be able to kind of change everything. Anything else we want to add? I think I would add, I'm going to add democratic as itself a feature, which I think is quite important. And I'm going to go to the kind of what I think the fair definition of democracy is, which is majority rule. Cool. So all these features are kind of important to us and lead us to effectively be able to, in the case of Bitcoin, build kind of fair money, money that is kind of owned by its users and a system that cannot be messed with but for a huge amount of hash power, computing power, and money, which means it's realistically not going to get broken, which is, again, a very different way. It also means that if we want to make kind of core changes, we need everyone to agree. Now, you do get alternatives. You get forking. So Bitcoin Cash is an alternative to Bitcoin, for instance, and Ethereum Classic emerged from the first Ethereum fork. So you do get these things, but fundamentally that is a case of saying, okay, we think we have a different opinion on the direction of this chain. We will give you tokens in our new chain. Come along for the ride if you want to. You don't need to. We will see this with the merge coming up with Ethereum. Cool. So we've established the theory and the kind of broad features, but like crypto isn't just cryptocurrencies. Or blockchain isn't just cryptocurrencies. So first and foremost, we have this concept of smart contracts. These are effectively if-then statements to do with code and the movement of money. Basically, if Danny sends me $5, send Laura $10. It's a simple smart contract where the event I'm looking out for is Danny sending me $5, which will trigger an event sending $10. Now, I can, because of the fact a blockchain is itself digital, or rather, because a blockchain is itself digital, I can have far smoother transactions from the word go, because also code is synonymous, or rather, but also because money, crypto money, is typically built into the browser. Now, the famous smart contract platform is Ethereum, or the first one is Ethereum, of which the native token Ether is the token you pay to use the network in, and you collect rewards in. And with smart contracts, I can build these things called dApps, decentralized applications. Decentralized being because of the blockchain, applications being just apps. And these are typically built, as I say, in smart contracts. And we can start doing some very cool use cases. But I think all the use cases effectively either themselves move money in a complicated way, or movement of money or something of value is incidental. I think that's kind of broadly very important. It's not every use case in blockchain, but broadly the incentives are baked in. There are different layer ones, and I should add Harmony is, which this series is sponsored by, it is a different layer one. Layer one here meaning just a blockchain. Harmony is EVM compatible. You can use it like you would Ethereum, but its consensus is different. Cool. There are other layer ones. If we continue the kind of EVM trend, Polygon, Avalanche, Celo, kind of good examples. But you also have others. Near, Solana, Algorand, Tezos. All in general, what they kind of try and do, they all try and iterate on the environment, the consensus, the execution, and also a trade-off between speed, scalability, which is called the trilemma. Cool. So what use cases does this lead to? Obviously, like the first use case of crypto is as money. And it's broadly been a use case we haven't seen kind of fully come to fruition for various reasons. Now, one reason is crypto is bad as a medium of exchange. It's too volatile. But we do have these things called stablecoins. Now, of course, we've recently, those who've heard of UST, that kind of blew up, and stablecoin designs. So a stablecoin, just say, is a coin pegged to a particular value that uses either a treasury and or mechanism to stay at target. And these are great, but sometimes they are kind of like monetary systems of their own. And they're perhaps imperfect at the end of the day. Cool. But what we can do is we can also build other use cases linked to crypto as money. So you get this concept of DeFi, which is decentralized finance. Broadly here, what we're trying to do is rebuild what happens with traditional banks, TradFi, in code. And this is clearly much more efficient. And kind of great examples of this are lending, exchanges, options, stablecoins that we've already talked about. What else we got? Yield, insurance, gambling. All of these things we can kind of rebuild with crypto. The second, what crypto is very good is crypto is great at digital identity ownership. I can have a clear link between my digital identity and the actual provable asset. And so that's also incredibly important. And this gives rise to something you will have also heard of, which is NFTs. Non-fungible tokens. So this means fungible here means exchangeable. So a 1p coin is the same as another 1p coin. It is fungible. Non-fungible is like the Mona Lisa. It's a unique piece of art. There's only one of it. Humans are broadly non-functional, non-fungible. They have a specific set of features that is unique to them, DNA, fingerprint, etc. So NFTs are great. We kind of broadly they are collectibles, and crypto is great at collectibles. But also they might be art, and they've clearly taken off. What I should add here, and I kind of allude to here, is like when something is synonymous as and with money, it can very quickly just become used for speculation. And I think mostly in crypto, the use case crypto has found is as gambling. And not as something that can generate actual revenue. So I think this is fairly important to note as well. We've got the cool things around DeFi, we've got the cool things around NFTs, and there are many, many other things to look at. NFTs leads into kind of gaming and kind of metaverse, for instance, which I think is particularly important. But it's still the main use case of crypto is kind of gambling and speculation, because there's no real actual revenue yet. There's no real use case. Again, this kind of gives you the devil advocate kind of part. The reason we don't use crypto as money is fiat kind of works fundamentally. And also fiat is used pretty much universally, and crypto is not, for various regulatory reasons. Cool. Cool. I want to take the questions from Miguel to say, since they're like very insecure. So yeah, so there are ways. The question here is everything public on a blockchain? So let's like look at a blockchain. So let's look at Harmony, Block Explorer. Cool. So I can see this transaction. I can see everything about it, where it's come from. Like, also, this is why crypto is terrible for money laundering. You can see everything, and I can see, yeah, I can see how much gas was used. I can see quite a lot of things. Now, there are ways of attaching files, but files are linked to public records, so it's kind of very hard to. You can you can hash data and you can do encryption. There's something called NewCipher that does it. So there are absolutely ways of like securing data, but in and of itself, like, it's really bad. Like, I effectively have my bank account that everyone can see. So once you work out this is my bank account, like, I can get paid into it. I rather you can see it, and my privacy is gone. So I know I would not store sensitive data on blockchain. It's a pretty bad idea. Or you can do it, but it's not obvious. But yes, you should encrypt the data first, correct, and have a way to unencrypt it that's unique to you. So like possible, but like not that viable. Not, I think, the main use case. Cool. Another thing I should note is one use case is kind of decentralizing technology plus Web3 in general. So what I mean here, Web3, I think, has a quite strong definition that not everyone uses, which is an internet built on protocols that are owned by their users, that people have money and tokens, identity, and collectibles built into the browser, that they self-custodize. This is another thing in crypto. You typically control your digital private key, which is when we talk about this thing here. We control our kind of thing that signs transactions ourselves. I think that's how you spell it. Yeah, but everybody uses that. If you have money, tokens, identity, collectibles, brother, and then they self-customize. This is broadly what we mean by Web3. And like, some of these assumptions you might agree with, some of you might not. You might say, okay, what do you mean by a protocol? So I mean something that it has a decentralized user base and it's an open source piece of technology. Again, this might be good, or it might be the case that there's no incentive, therefore, to build big technology because you know you're going to open source it, and it's very hard to align incentives properly. You might also not trust people to self-custodize. That means if your granny lost her kind of crypto passwords, she can't access her money, it's lost, and that's problematic. Banks have been kind of set up to stop this. And money in the browser like might be a thing, but maybe you don't need it. Like fiat kind of works well, and incentives and microtransactions might not be necessary. So I think there's another side to every story. But the sum here, as we kind of put it all together, is that you can use crypto for cool things. And as we get later in the series, you'll kind of see the use case we're talking about. And again, whenever you ever do a crypto transaction, you use money from here to Argentina in like 10 seconds, you're like really cheaply, like that's really cool. And when you see complicated financial products that banks have thousands of staff to maintain, kind of built by two guys in their underwear, like that's really cool. NFTs, I think, make intuitive sense as collectibles, since I have a clear formal link between the digital identity and the original asset itself by a person who has been proven as the actual creator of the asset. What this means for, Danny, if you could mute that chat, what this means for kind of you really is many things. If you're a developer, and there's countless opportunities that the hackathon will provide such. I think you should have a general awareness of a blockchain, and I've not here talked about the sort of legal side of it. I think broadly everything is fine, but you should be wary of the kind of speculative side of crypto I talked about here. But there are lots of different blockchains doing lots of different things broadly along the principles I've set here. And awareness of this as fundamentally, if I had to sum it up in a TLDR, as Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies being an alternative to money that is decentralized. This decentralization is facilitated by a database software called blockchain. It has a certain number of features. In order for you to come to agreement without needing a central party, it broadly then has to be democratic, majority rule, immutable, open, trustless, and on top of this, you have these smart contracts that allow us to build applications like things like Uber and eBay and all the things we use on the internet now on crypto kind of principles. And we then see the emergence of DeFi, which is super cool, NFTs, and many other things. So yeah, a nice whistle-stop tour through blockchain. Are there any sort of questions people want me to specifically answer at this point? So what is coming up in this series? This series kind of takes you through 6 aspects of starting from an intro to blockchain today, to an intro to Harmony next, to kind of deeper technical look at Harmony, into looking at the ecosystem itself. So it takes you from zero, and you don't have to go to all different parts. You can pick and choose. These also go on YouTube the next day. Takes you through to being fairly good on Harmony by the end of it. Yeah. What is my favorite blockchain? Harmony. No, I am agnostic, but probably Ethereum for everything it's achieved. And those of you who know, the merge is a super interesting thing as well, which I highly recommend people to kind of read up on, and we might talk about it in the later series. Good. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me on Twitter, on Discord, or anything in between. It's been a pleasure. We look forward to seeing you at the next event, which is a week today, and we hope you sign up for the hackathon. Danny has put a link in there, and Danny will probably be in touch over the coming weeks coming up. In the meantime, everyone, thank you very much. Have a good rest of the day, and see you all very soon.